What if I told you that everything you believe about love is actually destroying your chances of ever experiencing it? That the very thing you're desperately seeking, to be chosen, validated, and loved by someone, is the exact reason why you keep attracting toxic relationships, emotional dependency, and heartbreak after heartbreak? Most people spend their entire lives chasing love, but they're actually chasing something completely different. And this confusion is costing them their emotional freedom, their self-worth, and their ability to build truly fulfilling relationships. In the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal the psychological trap that 99% of people fall into when it comes to love, show you the difference between mature love and emotional addiction, and give you the exact framework to break free from the cycle of neediness that's been sabotaging your relationships. By the end of this video, you'll understand why you've been attracting the wrong people, how to stop being emotionally dependent on others for your worth, and most importantly, how to love from a place of wholeness instead of emptiness. If this introduction just hit you like a lightning bolt, and you're thinking, this is exactly what I needed to hear, then do me a favor right now. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring that notification bell, because what I'm about to share with you in the next few minutes will completely transform how you approach love and relationships forever. This isn't just another psychology video. This is the wake-up call that separates those who stay stuck in toxic patterns from those who break free and create the love life they actually deserve. Don't let this moment pass you by. Subscribe now so you never miss the insights that could change everything. You say you want love, but let me ask you honestly, is it love you really want, or is it to feel chosen by someone? Because there's a massive difference between loving and wanting to be loved. Most people who claim they're seeking love are actually desperate for validation. They want someone from the outside to prove what they cannot sustain on their own, their worth. They want to be seen, admired, desired, not because it strengthens any bond, but because it silences the insecurity that screams inside their chest. Erich Fromm in The Art of Loving got straight to the point. Most people don't seek to love. They seek to be loved because being loved seems easier, more comfortable. Loving requires effort, discipline, commitment. Being loved seems like a gift that solves everything. If someone loves me, then I am important. Then I deserve to exist. And this is where the illusion begins. You don't want love. You want the feeling that you are finally enough. That someone looked at you and said with their gaze or touch, you are worth it. Because deep down, you don't believe that on your own. Your desire for love isn't about sharing. It's about filling. Filling that internal void no one sees, but that you feel every day. A void that may have started in childhood, perhaps with rejection, abandonment, or simply from never being taught to see yourself as someone worthy of love without having to prove anything to anyone. So you grew up believing you need to be chosen to have value, that you need to be desired to be relevant. And every time someone chooses you, you feel for a brief moment that everything is okay, that the emptiness has disappeared. But it always comes back, doesn't it? Fromm called this immature love. It's that love that arises from the need for fusion. That urgency to merge with someone because you cannot stand being with yourself. It's not desire, it's dependency. It's not connection, it's emotional addiction. And the worst part? The culture we live in feeds this. It teaches you to look for someone to complete you, save you, someone to give meaning to your existence. But that is a lie sold as romance. True love doesn't happen when someone chooses you. It can only be born when you stop needing to be chosen. If you're still watching, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. This journey of self-discovery is just getting started, and you don't want to miss what's coming next. If you've made it this far, it's because on some level you feel this. You know that something is wrong with the way you relate. You feel that there's something in you that still waits to be validated by someone from the outside. And maybe you're tired. Tired of begging for attention, of losing yourself trying to be what others want, of clinging to the slightest display of affection as if it were all you have. But let me tell you one thing. This video isn't here to comfort you. It's to awaken you. Because as long as you don't see the root of your emptiness, you'll continue to call neediness love and dependency connection. And that only destroys you from within. Most people see the problem of love primarily as the issue of being loved, rather than the issue of loving, of being capable of love. Erich Fromm. This sentence shouldn't just be read. It should be digested slowly because it reveals an emotional distortion that dominates almost all modern relationships. The idea that love is something to be received rather than something to be offered. And it's precisely this inversion that transforms what should be a mutual growth experience into a desperate search for validation. Have you noticed how when thinking about love, what comes to the minds of most people is, will someone choose me? Am I interesting enough? Am I worthy of being loved? These are legitimate questions, but they reveal a completely outward focus. In this scenario, love becomes a kind of prize, and the person becomes a product trying to be attractive enough to deserve that prize. Fromm points out with surgical precision this misunderstanding. Being loved is the passive side of love. It's being the object of love. For many, being loved means being desired, and therein lies the problem. We confuse desire with love. We confuse being seen with being cared for. Desire is great, but it's unstable. It can ignite in 1 second and disappear in the next. And if your sense of worth is based on being desired, then you become a hostage to the gaze of the other. Your self-esteem becomes a leaf in the wind. Just one rejection, one silence, one no, and everything crumbles inside. But Fromm goes even deeper. He says that this obsession with being loved has roots in how we structure our emotional lives from an early age. He states, most people are eager for love, but almost no one is truly capable of loving. Because to love truly requires something that almost no one is willing to face: emotional maturity. Loving requires stepping outside oneself, looking at the other with responsibility, with intention, not as someone who will complete you, but as someone with whom you wish to share your wholeness. And that's rare because we're too busy trying to be noticed, trying to prove with every like, every response, with every gesture of attention that we deserve something, that we're worth something. This confusion between loving and being loved creates fragile, anxious relationships. Intense at the beginning and devastating at the end. Relationships where two individuals come together not to build something, but to extract from each other what they feel is lacking within themselves. It's not love. It's an emotional bargain, a silent pact. Give me the feeling that I'm worth it, and I'll give you whatever you want in return. But the bill always comes due, and in the end, there's emptiness left again. But what exactly are we trying to fill with this desire to be loved? What is this internal void that makes us so susceptible to any affection that seems genuine? The answer to this lies in a central idea of Fromm's, and will be the focus of the next part: the neurotic need for fusion, the addiction to feeling complete through the other, and the price we pay for it. Before we continue, make sure you've liked this video. It helps more people discover these life-changing insights. There's a brutal difference between loving someone and needing someone. But most people who say they're in search of love are actually starving for something much more primitive: validation. The desire is not to connect, it's to feel worthy. It's not to share one's essence. It's to be chosen as a way to fill the internal void that has never been faced directly. And this is where Erich Fromm's theory becomes not only relevant, but necessary. Fromm speaks of what he calls the neurotic need for fusion. In his words, the deepest desire is not for sexual union, but the yearning for fusion, to rid oneself of separation, to escape the prison of self. Do you understand the weight of this? When you chase after someone to be loved, it's not love that you're seeking. It's fusion, the momentary relief from your own internal separation. You want to escape from yourself. You want someone to hold you so tightly, emotionally, physically, symbolically, that for a few seconds you disappear, that the voice inside your head goes silent, that the insecurity evaporates, that the fear of not being enough, of being alone, of being forgotten, vanishes. But this is impossible because no one will give you this in a lasting way. No human being will forever bear the weight of proving to you that you have worth. No relationship will heal a wound that is yours. And as long as you insist on this illusion, the illusion that being chosen transforms you into someone complete, you'll live oscillating between euphoria and collapse, between idealization and frustration, between now it will happen and again, it didn't work. Fromm makes it clear that this type of symbiotic fusion is not love. It's a regressive form of relationship based on dependence and not on freedom. He writes, "In symbiotic love, two people become one, but neither remains as an individual. It's a union without integrity." And this is the trap, because what you call deep love may just be camouflaged dependency. Perhaps what you feel as overwhelming passion is in fact an addiction to feeling important to someone. It's like an emotional drug. When the other chooses you, you feel alive. When they pull away, you crumble. This hunger to be chosen has deep roots. It doesn't start in adulthood, in relationship frustrations. It starts much earlier. It begins in childhood, in the way we were seen or not seen by those who were supposed to teach us to love ourselves. That's why what we're calling the search for love is in fact an unconscious repetition of an old pain. An attempt to do now what we couldn't do before, to feel unconditionally loved. And this cycle only breaks when you recognize that your pain is not in the present, it's in the past. What hurts today is the echo of what was unresolved back then. And to understand this, we need to look directly at the origin of this need. We need to go down to the emotional root of the problem, the wounded child that still lives inside you, asking for love with a choked voice. Have you ever wondered why, even after so long, certain rejections still crumble you like you were 5 years old? Why do you cling so tightly and so quickly to those who give you the slightest bit of attention? Why do you feel like the whole world is collapsing when someone pulls away or simply stops responding? It's not an exaggeration. It's not drama. It's a child inside you screaming silently for something it never received. Erich Fromm doesn't use the term inner child directly in The Art of Loving, but the entire emotional structure he describes points exactly to that. The formation of our way of loving comes from our childhood, how we were loved, seen, or ignored. He states, "The experience of separation provokes anxiety. It is by far the most intense source of anguish in man. And it's precisely in childhood that this experience of separation manifests with the most brutality. The child is born completely dependent. It needs to be fed, protected, touched, validated, and above all, it needs to feel emotionally safe. When this doesn't happen, when the love received is conditional, unstable, absent, or manipulative, an invisible wound is created. And this wound doesn't disappear with time. It just hides under adult masks, forced self-sufficiency, impulsive relationships, constant need to be desired, paralyzing fear of rejection." Fromm writes about how many adults seek in relationships a symbolic way back to the womb, a state of security and total fusion. This, according to him, is regression, not evolution. He says, "In the childish form of love, I love because I am loved. In the mature form, I am loved because I love." The childish form of love still lives in you when you seek someone to love you, so that you can then feel complete. This logic is deeply emotional, not rational. The wounded child inside you learned that to be loved, it needed to please. It needed to be useful. It needed to not be a bother. And now as an adult, you continue trying to deserve love, trying to fit in, trying to be enough for someone to stay. But the problem was never that you weren't worthy of love. The problem was that you learned you had to strive to have it. And this shaped your entire view of affection. It shaped your way of loving, of giving yourself, of protecting yourself. What you call love is often just this child repeating old patterns. If I am perfect, they won't abandon me. If I please, they will choose me. If I am needed, they will love me. And this cycle is cruel because no matter how much you do, how much you give, how much you nullify yourself, nothing will be enough to silence the pain of the child that still believes love must be earned. And as long as you ignore this part of you, you'll continue attracting relationships that only confirm this wound. Relationships that don't heal, but only reinforce. But there is a way out. Healing doesn't come from the outside. It doesn't come from the next relationship, the next promise, the next crumb of attention. Healing begins when you finally look at this child, not with judgment, but with compassion. When you stop demanding that others take care of what is your responsibility. Make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on, because the next part will show you exactly how to break free from these patterns. Loving truly is one of the most demanding tasks of human life. It's no coincidence that most people fail miserably when trying, because loving is not falling in love. It's not desire, it's not attachment. Loving, as Erich Fromm teaches us, is an act of courage, a conscious decision, of emotional discipline. And that's exactly why it's so rare, because it requires you to be whole before even touching the other. Fromm doesn't mince words. Love is an activity, not a passive affection. It is a continuous standing up, not a sudden falling. In general, the active character of love can be described by saying that to love is above all to give and not to receive. This quote is a reality check because it destroys one of the most ingrained illusions of contemporary culture, that love is something that simply happens to us, that it's something magical, involuntary, a beautiful accident. But Fromm says the opposite. Loving is an action, a practice, a constant commitment. It's a choice that's renewed every day, even when passion runs out, even when the other fails, even when life weighs down. And here's the detail that exposes how unprepared most people are to love. You cannot offer what you haven't built within yourself. Fromm states, the problem of human existence is that of separation. Love is the answer to this problem. But only those who have overcome the separation within themselves can truly love. In other words, as long as you're internally fragmented, you'll use the other as a patch. You'll confuse presence with salvation. You'll think that being with someone is enough, when in fact, to love is to be with someone even when it would be easier to flee. And this is only possible when you've already resolved the most difficult conflict, the relationship you have with yourself. Loving requires presence, and presence requires maturity. Most relationships collapse not due to the absence of feeling, but due to the absence of emotional structure. People who confuse attention with love, attachment with bond, neediness with surrender. Fromm insists that love is an art, and like all art, it requires learning, patience, practice, and perhaps most importantly, humility. He writes, anyone who intends to learn the art of loving must start in the same way one starts to learn any other art, through practice, discipline, concentration, and patience. But how many are truly willing to do this? How many are willing to stop consuming love as if it were a shelf product, ready to be used and discarded? To truly love is to swim against the current of immediate culture, against the inflated ego, against the fear of vulnerability. To truly love is to have the courage to strip down emotionally without any guarantee that the other will do the same and still love. This is the point at which love ceases to be a romantic fantasy and becomes an internal revolution. When you stop wanting someone to save you and start being someone with whom you can build. When you stop begging for affection and start choosing to love consciously, clearly, responsibly. When you don't love because you need to, but because you want to. But for this to happen, it's necessary to see and abandon one of the greatest emotional traps of our times. The infantilization of love promoted by modern culture. The idea that to love is to be chosen, to please, to fit in, and that the other is there to fill our voids. We live in a culture that packages love as a product, easy to consume, easy to discard, seductive at first glance, and superficial in content. Hollywood, social media, romantic songs, everything repeats the same sweet and dangerously false message. That to love is to find someone who completes you, someone who makes you happy, someone who fills your voids with their presence, affection, and promises. But that's not love. It's emotional dependency disguised as poetry. And Erich Fromm knew this long before the age of algorithms. He writes, "In modern culture, most people believe that loving is simple, and that the difficult part is finding the right object to love or be loved by." This belief results from the superficial idea that loving is easy for anyone. And here lies the trap. People don't want to learn to love. They want to be loved effortlessly. They want to live intense romances without having to look within. They want to be desired without asking themselves why. They want the other as a mirror that confirms their own idealized image, and not as a real encounter between two imperfect human beings. The infantilization of love begins right there. When we turn the relationship into a fantasy field where the other exists to save us from ourselves. Fromm denounces this as a structural flaw in our society. We're not taught to love. We're conditioned to desire status, beauty, approval, pleasure, and we project all of this onto the other. We want someone to prove to us that we're special, to take us out of loneliness, doubt, insecurity. But that's not love. It's a search for an emotional father, a nurturing mother, for someone to take on the responsibility that should be ours. He also points out that in immature love, the other is seen as an object of emotional consumption, something that must work for me to feel good. And here's the most uncomfortable point. You may be relating not to another person, but to the idea of what that person makes you feel. This explains why so many people don't love, they just cling. And why so many relationships end as soon as the illusion falls. Culture trains us to desire sensations, not connections, to seek intensity, not intimacy, to consume the other, not to build together. The result? Fragile, anxious relationships, hypersensitive to the slightest sign of frustration. People who fall in love quickly, but burn out even faster. Love's based on expectation, not reality. On neediness, not on choice. And all of this is constantly reinforced by a system that profits from your dissatisfaction. That sells the promise that the next one will be better. That if you haven't found the one yet, it's because you haven't tried hard enough to appear more desirable, more interesting, more perfect. But true love doesn't happen in showcases. It doesn't arise from emotional marketing. It can only emerge when two people meet without the need to complete each other, but with the willingness to share themselves. And this requires a type of awareness that goes against everything we've been taught about what it means to love. If this message is resonating with you, show your support by hitting that like button and sharing this video with someone who needs to hear this truth. True love begins exactly where need ends. It doesn't arise from lack, urgency, or the fear of being alone. It's born from presence, your ability to remain whole in front of another, without nullifying yourself, without losing yourself, without begging to be validated. When you still need to be chosen to feel valuable, you're not loving. You're just trying to exist through the other. You're trying to prove to yourself once again that you're worthy of being seen. But real love has nothing to do with that. It's not a cry for help. It's not neediness disguised as passion. Authentic love is a choice. It's the natural expression of someone who has already found themselves, who has already seen themselves as whole, who has already faced their own emptiness and decided to no longer use it as an excuse to emotionally depend on anyone. You've spent too much time seeking someone to make you feel special. But what if you stopped today? What if you decided that from now on, your worth will no longer be measured by the eyes of others? Because that's exactly where freedom begins. The love that comes after this doesn't bind, doesn't demand, doesn't suffocate. It shares, adds, builds. It doesn't try to fill what's lacking. It overflows. Now I want to know from you. If this message resonated with you, leave in the comments. I do not need to be chosen to feel whole. Write this as a commitment to yourself, because it's when you declare this that you begin to take control of your story. And if this video touched you, don't stop here. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on, because the next video in this series is also essential on this journey. It may show you what you haven't yet had the courage to face. Hit that subscribe button now. Give this video a like if it helped you. And I'll see you in the next one, where we dive even deeper into breaking free from these patterns that have been holding you back.